We are sorry to start the broadcast late. But we had some technical issues. I'd like to introduce Shane Stevenson, our Senior Program Manager, who will start with an update on what has been happening at the donor conference today.
Thank you, Orsan. We're here in Geneva at the UN pledging conference for Yemen. So there's an ask of 2.1 billion to meet humanitarian aid and assistance and protection. Nothing more, nothing less, just to meet the dire needs of the Yemeni people. It's a very auspicious building that we're in. We have views of Lake Geneva over there as well. The pledging hall is absolutely ram-packed, and we've heard from the hosts, Sweden and Switzerland, who are very, very much pushing that the international community step up and become accountable, meet the humanitarian fund requirements, but also pushing that we need peace in Yemen. Now, I'm very lucky today. I'm joined by a rake of Yemenis who have come over to talk at a delegation. But before we talk to them, I'd like to invite Salah to come and join me here in front of the photo exhibition. Salah is the Chief Executive Officer of the Disaster Emergency Committee Appeal. Last time we met, I think it was in December when we did a similar event for your appeal. So tell us how this compares to your appeal event in the UK and how the UN hosting an event like this.
Well, obviously it's quite different in that the Disasters Emergency Committee appeal was targeting the mass public in the UK, the very generous public in the UK, and in the space of just one day, the UK public responded by donating over £5 million. That's phenomenal in just one day. Now, a few months later, we've now raised £23 million, of which £5 million came from DFID, the UK aid match scheme. So, of course, we're incredibly grateful for the generosity of the public, and we're here today listening to governments mainly, and hopefully later on we'll hear NGOs and other organisations pledge money to, as Shane said, the $2.1 billion that's required just to prevent the looming famine that's now predicted in Yemen. In fact, sadly, what we're hearing in Yemen is that there is already pockets of famine. It's just that the data is just not backing it up. So it's getting worse. And despite us raising lots of money and governments pledging money, the situation in Yemen is sadly deteriorating. It needs more than money. It needs also, hopefully, peace to reach that part of the world.
Later on, you get an opportunity to speak at the conference. So what will be your key messages to the international community?
Well, I want to use the generosity of the UK public as a model for how other nations should be doing this. Really, globally, the world has to respond in a much more coordinated way and involve people at a national level. UK has been phenomenally generous, both at government and public level. And I would love to see across Europe, across the Middle East, across the United States, everywhere else, for people to really join up together and help the people of Yemen to avert famine.
Do big events in auspicious locations like this actually make a difference to the people on the ground in Yemen?
Well, without a doubt, this is an opportunity for governments around the world to really put their money where their mouth is, and say, yes, we're going to pledge this amount of money and give it to either to UN or INGOs to make that difference. So it does make a difference, without a doubt. What we fear and are concerned about, as happened in previous pledging conferences, is that the full amount that's needed to avert famine is never raised, or sadly some organisations or governments don't follow up on their pledge.
No, not at all. I mean, in the previous two pledges for Yemen, only 1.9 billion was raised in the last two successive years, and this year they're asking for 2.1 billion. What I am finding when I go into the hall and I'm listening to all the delegates speaking is that people are very, very well informed. People actually, some of the messages that have been delivered by the international INGOs working in Yemen and partner organizations are getting through to senior level ministers in Western and Gulf states. They do have a good grasp of the situation on the ground. However, I find it very disappointing that they don't have an international presence on the ground. You were recently in Yemen. Could you like to describe what you saw, who you saw, and what your feelings are about Yemen right now?
Yeah. I have a very close connection with Yemen. I was born in Yemen and I migrated with my family to the UK when I was just 4 years old. But I've been a frequent visitor to both family and friends. And it saddens me, having visited Yemen just 2-3 months ago, to see the terrible state both the people and the country is in. Total devastation.
Where did you go?
Almost collapsed. I went to both northern and southern parts of Yemen. I visited Sana'a, I visited Hodeidah, I visited Abiyan, Lahj and Aden. And really, there's two particular people that I met there that will forever remain with me. One was a little boy whose name was Omar in Hodeidah in a clinic called Al-Zuhra. This child was only 1 year old and only weighed 4 kilograms. That's half of what of a child his age would normally weigh. Severely malnourished. Now, thankfully, that child was getting the support through a DEC member agency and receiving plumpy nut paste. I also visited families in Abiyan, and I met there a grandmother who must have been, I mean, she didn't know her age, but she must have been around 80 years old, if not more. And she said to me, in all her life, she's seen hard times before in Yemen. Remember, Yemen was already the poorest country.
Yes, it's the poorest country in the
Middle
Middle
East.
East.
Yeah. And she said, look, I've seen hard times. I've been through hard times in Yemen, but I've never known it to be so bad. You know, that's 7 million people who do not know where their next meal is
7
coming
million
from.
out of 27 million. There's 18.6 million of the figures that are quoted here today. They're asking to reach only 12 million of the 18.6 million. So there's so much more work that needs to be done, so much more. And what you're saying is it's all across Yemen. Although there's pockets of famine, it doesn't mean that there isn't suffering and need throughout the country. And it's not just from the children, it's all the way up to the elderly as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I was saying, you know, these are just two examples of people who are sadly suffering as a result of this man-made situation. And these are innocent people that need our help, not only our help, but globally. So, you know, we would urge people out there who have yet to support the appeal, please do so, and please encourage your friends and family to do so. Every single penny will make a huge difference to someone's life in Yemen.
Thank you, that's great. I'd just like to add, we do have a question that's just come through, that Oxfam and other UK-based aid agencies that are on the ground in Yemen do receive funds from the DEC appeal. We're already implementing those funds. We're working in informal camps, which are in the north of the country, and other parts providing clean, fresh, potable water, providing cash so people can go to the markets to buy whatever food they can, and to help people just basically get through the day-to-day living. So we're very, very grateful as a representative of Oxfam. I'd like to thank you, shake your hand publicly, and hopefully we can maintain this relationship, and thank you for your time. We'll have just one question coming in before you leave.
So the question's from Pauline Canham. What can be done to open up the ports and airports to allow food, medical supplies and aid into the country and end the siege of Yemen?
The commercial airspace, I don't know if anyone's aware, but when you come into Sana'a, the only way you can fly into Sana'a is on a UN-registered flight, which is partially paid for by a series of governments, including the UK government. There's 4 or 5 flights, and you have to put your name on a manifest, it has to be agreed, and that's the only way in and out, and that's mainly facilitating international humanitarian response. It's not for regular Yemenis to be able to come out, receive medical support, to get their friends and family, to meet their relatives. It's basically isolating the country quite severely. Comments on?
Yeah, sure. Yemen is a fairly large country and has access points across the Red Sea and along the Arabian Gulf as well, or the Gulf of Aden. And there is no doubt that there is a siege there, and there has to be pressure brought on all responsible parties who are causing aid to be restricted, really, to lift any kind of siege and to allow humanitarian access, full and unimpeded access. Having said that, I've travelled extensively across Yemen, as I mentioned, both northern parts and southern parts, and I was actually amazed and surprised by the amount of humanitarian aid trucks that was getting around. Yeah. There's an incredible amount of resilience amongst the population and business people who are moving goods around the country. They do find ways of getting aid in. It's not enough, and we do need to put pressure on governments to lift any kind of embargo or siege, but that's not the key problem. The key problem here is cash. People need funds in order to buy the materials that are already available on the markets. And actually, as I've mentioned, the traders are getting things in. Yes. They need to sell those. People don't have the money to buy them. We need to support those traders and people on the ground to buy their own food and give them the dignity they so desperately need and deserve.
One of the issues that Oxfam has been talking about and has been raised internationally for probably the best part of 18 months is the restoration of the cranes at Hodeidah port. Hodeidah port is a deep water port. A lot of the food imports come in. 90% of food in Yemen is imported. As I said, food is available. People can't afford it. It is finding ways in through leaky borders. People managing to find ways of feeding themselves and their family, but it really is at the basic level. So we are also hearing, and which scares us, that Hodeidah port being a strategic place could also be, at the forefront of where the battle could break out in the future. At the moment, the cranes aren't working. It's under siege. People from Hodeidah are leaving. We've seen reports on Channel 4 about the situations in Hodeidah. One of the camps that Oxfam works with is in Hajjah, just north of Hodeidah. And we're facilitating many people from that governorate to go up there because they have nowhere else to go and they don't feel safe. So what we want is commercial airspace to be opened up. We want the ports to be opened up, but also, as you mentioned, the food supplies that go around the country to protect it, the infrastructure protected, and the people's livelihoods that exist, not just protected, but also encouraged. We're not talking about large-scale enterprise. We're talking about tools for mechanics. We're talking about seeds for farmers. We're talking about sewing machines for tailors. We're talking about small scale people to get their livelihoods go, and importantly, give them that dignity and hope that they need and crave. Any final comments before?
Yeah, I just really want to thank again the generous UK public that have given to the DEC appeal and Oxfam and other DEC agencies. And I have seen with my own eyes the wonderful work that the DEC agencies, including Oxfam, do on the ground, both in terms of immediate humanitarian assistance, food and water, but also some of the more longer-term livelihoods that you mentioned. Every donation really makes a difference, and I just want to thank everybody for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So we'll just move on to the next part of what we're going to do now. Oh, we have one more question. We'll go take the question. Then after that, what we're going to do is going to introduce some people who have travelled all the way from Yemen to be here in Geneva. And later on today, they'll be able to give a statement to the international community. When I was in Yemen a few months ago, and we met with partner organisations, one of the key asks was, international community are not listening to us. Give us space so we can talk to them. The UN have facilitated your visit over. We had a similar representation at the London event in January. Here to hear your messages. We'd like to see what they're going to say and stuff first. But before we go to that, let's see if we can field one question.
So here's a question from one of our Arab viewers, who's asking about the question of access. That you talked about how Oxfam is doing great work in some areas, but this Facebook viewer is asking why Oxfam can't provide this in all areas.
When we've actually just, Oxfam are developing a strategy for their engagement in Yemen. Oxfam has been in Yemen working for the last 32 years. Access, well, we're constrained. We're constrained by many things. One is human resourcing, one is by finance, one is by safety concerns, and one is obviously our compliance to our institutional donors such as governments and maybe the EU as well. So what we do, we have work in the south and in the north. We go to where we have good levels of community acceptance, where we have good levels of engagement with the decision makers that give us the access to the people who need it. This takes time, it takes a lot of effort. If we go further places, we stretch ourselves even very thinly and we become less effective. So we have to be pointed, work within the UN cluster system, allocate where we work, and then decide that's what we're going to do. There are modalities. We work mainly in livelihoods, providing cash vouchers, cash for work, dignity kits, hygiene kits, and we work in rehabilitation of water networks as well. Thank you. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our partners from Yemen to come over and join me in front of this very, very small Samsung phone. Come across. Come across. Yes, please. So, I'll ask you to introduce yourselves. May you just tell me about which organizations that you represent, and what are your first thoughts on being here in Geneva?
Okay. My name is Tumna Obaid. I work in a Field Medical Foundation as Project and Programs Manager. It's the first time for me here in Geneva, first time to participate in such an prestigious event. However, we had a previous chance to be with you in Oxfam workshop in London.
Yes.
So we participated, but it was via video conference. So thank you for bringing us this time. It means a lot for us because now we can talk in person with all the people who are involving in the humanitarian interventions in the country. We can reflect our perspective regarding the actual humanitarian situations, because we have been hearing many reports talking about how is the situation and what is needed and what is expected. But to have an insight from the local NGOs to tell you what is actually on the ground. Coming to the questions that was raised before, it is how is the accessibility? It is actually a little bit difficult for the INGO and UN to have an access to all areas in the country. Therefore, one of our key messages that we want to highlight here in the Geneva conference is to have a stronger partnership with the local NGOs.
Yes.
Because we have the access, we have the ability, and we have the capability to work with you as a partners. And we want to encourage this to be more adapted, especially with the new fundings now. We have heard in the conference now, many have pledging already, but the issue now is how to deliver this fund to the people in need. You can have a huge amount of money, but you don't know how to direct it to the people in need. And here comes the idea of partnering with the local NGOs. It's also, we need the UN NGOs working in the country to strengthen their assessment on the ground, because what have we seen before is, according to the HNO prepared by OCHA for 2016
humanitarian needs
assessment overview.
Yes.
So it reveals that 74% in people in Mukalla and Adan's hub are in needs, while we see that the aid is not coming according to the need assessment rather than the population number, which is kind of unfair, and also it causes kind of gap between the need and how to address this need. And it is very critical issues, and we don't want this to be also repeated with the new funding. We need further assessment across the country, because now the situation is not stable. I mean, you have pre-assessment in some areas in Yemen, but now they are under conflict or just emerge from conflict. So you have to update your data before coming with aid interventions. Otherwise, we will keep moving in a circle.
Okay,
yes.
so I'll just introduce yourself and then I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay, myself, I am Nabil Al-Kumaim. I'm from Yemen Family Care Association. This association was established in 1976. Last year we have celebrated the 40 years anniversary of the organizations. We started in health and nutrition services in the country, and now we are expanding our themes and interventions and working in all aspects of humanitarian themes. Well, we come, as you said, we come along from the country. Myself and Intisar, we came from Sana'a. and Tumna, she came from Aden, and the other two colleagues as well. The situation in the country, I mean, it is, as you know, Yemen is like the forgotten story in the humanitarian context. Here we will deliver. I mean, we will address a statement after like 1 hour from now. We will talk to all humanitarian actors, to the politicians in the meeting room, that yes, humanitarian interventions is important, but this will not ending the issue. No, we need also political and peace talk, so that people will come together into a round table and will end up this war. We will talk to all participants. They should go back to their countries. They should talk in their capitals. They should talk to the media about the Yemen, to raising the profile of the country.
Thank you. Some of the rhetoric that I'm hearing from the delegates today is that yes, we will pledge funds, and they then come in with the caveat: we need peace. Peace. This is a conflict-driven famine. However, my sense is that they're pledging the money and the peace, but I'm not sure that they fully grasp the situation on the ground. So I'll pass over to you, and you can comment maybe what the situation is on the ground. Maybe does the international community really understand what's going on in Yemen, or are we just around the edges thinking that we know?
Thank you for this invitation, actually. I'm Intisar, the head of All Girls Foundation for Development.
We're all together.
I'm Intisar Al-Aadi, the head of All Girls Foundation for Development. I'm here to raise the voice of Yemeni people, of women, that we need peace. Stop the terrible and really the terrible war. This is our message to the international community, and also we want to ask the international community to have a role in peace building process. This is the most important, and to raise the issue of Yemen and the humanitarian issues and circumstances in Yemen. Also, I want to emphasize that we want to open the banning of the airport of Sana'a. This is the most important. A lot of people are suffering from this crime. It's really crime that many sick people that are traveling long distance to have treatment to other country, and they die during the traveling from city to the other city for the airport. Also, we want to ask the international community to integrate the relief response with the early recovery for sustainability, for development, and to shorten the relief stage, and also for dignity of Yemeni people. Also, we want to ask to take care, about the women.
Is the situation worse for women on the ground than this?
Actually the conflict is worsen the situation of women.
So what's the situation for women?
Now the women are suffering. Most of the men are in the fighting, and most of women, they are taking care of their family, of their house. They are looking for food. They are looking for water. They are looking to feed their children, and for the. Of course, it's not that enough. We ask the international community to have humanitarian response with integration with the early recovery, which is the most important for Yemeni people, for dignity. For dignity.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So when I was in Yemen as an international, I only get a very, very blinkered view of what I see, and I see it through our programs. But maybe you can, each of you, like, give me an example of someone you've met who's inspired you, or someone's situation that you know, touched you somewhere. I mean, it's very hard for us to relate even to the people watching today. We're here in Geneva at this UN pledging conference. It's a fantastic building. Lake Geneva's just outside the window. It's a little bit misty. We've got violins in the background. This is so far away from what's happening in Yemen.
Actually, the issue is here that everybody is focusing on seeing the humanitarian situation in the country only through numbers and statistics and reports.
Yeah, so give us...
But they should consider that behind every case of malnourished child or displaced person or food insecure person, there is a tragic untold story. I have come across to a very heartbreaking story. It happened into one of our mobile clinics in Dala Governorate. The child was malnourished, have SAM case, which is severe. SAM means a severe acute malnutrition, and he should be treated immediately. And he have also a side effect from the SAM case, and he should have transferred to a health facility to take care of him, a special health facility. The mother has other 6 children. They also have other health issues, but this one was very in critical and bad situation. And the mobile team told her, you have to refer the kids to the health facility. But the mother could not move because she has other 6 kids. And she said to the doctor, should I sacrifice the life of the other 6 for the sake of one? And the child died. Nobody should do that. The mother should not. He was less than 2 years. It's very tragic. I mean, no one should choose whether his children should, one of his to live or die, and no mother should be put in such a situation. But for her it was very difficult to move on to another place because of the income, and because of as for a family to move on for another place is very difficult.
Why do you think that these stories, these real life stories, are not getting out of Yemen? Maybe you could relive one of them for us and for our viewers, but also at the same time, give us an impact why there isn't this media attention that we have on other crises on Yemen.
Actually, I want to mention that I can say we are in paradise, but our people, our Yemeni people, they are living in, what can I say, it's a really disaster. They are suffering from everything, but we are fine here. So we are here to tell the people, to tell the international community, please highlight the situation in Yemen. Yemeni people are suffering. They are looking for food. They are looking for development. They are looking for security. Sorry?
So maybe you can tell us about a family member or someone, what is the situation? Tell us. I hear that in the summer in the north of Yemen it's 50-degree heat. Winds are blowing across, sandstorms and dust. Everyone has to wrap up. It's particularly hard. It's even a harsh environment without all the other issues that are going on.
The Yemeni people are suffering from, like I said, from the. I forgot. There is a woman. She visited me before 2 weeks. She's IDPs, and actually she said that the people are suffering. They are poor and they need a lot of supporting. She said that, but they still have hope. And she opened her school, her home, to be as a school, to teach women, to teach girls, to give them some some hope that we are still and we want to live. And we want dignity. We want to be educated women. And she opened it, and she doesn't have anything. She's poor, actually. She is poor, and she is looking for supporting, and she still have hope to teach the others, to raise the awareness of the other people. So this is the role. This is the time of the international community to do something. We are really waiting for the international community. We heard about human rights. We heard about the council security. But Yemen is still out of this.
You showed me last night pictures of this very small room. It was the size of a garden shed. It was really small. And there's women and girls sat on the table. There's one chalkboard. There was one window. It was very dark and dingy. But as you said, she was poor. She took some initiative. This is what you want. You don't just want humanitarian assistance, but you need the next step that gives you the dignity and hope as well. Please tell us more about Yemen.
Yeah, well, my story is not about one person actually. It is about like 1 million persons. They are the teachers, the school teachers in Yemen, because until now, it is for the 7 months they don't receive any salaries. They were about to sell everything they have in their houses. They start selling their furniture, their blankets. They start borrowing from the groceries in the corners. But at the end of the day, they don't find anybody to borrow from him. So at the end of the day, they should go and they should leave school and to go to the streets to work and loading and offloading commodities for some traders. And this is the story. Is that of course those people, they cannot live without salary. Before the war, those people, they are already in suffering, but now it is getting worse and worse. For all of them, I mean, it is not part of them or half of them. No, this is like 1 million teachers, which is about 7 million individuals for this 1 million families.
I can add to that.
Please.
Actually, we contacted with the managers and the teachers at the schools to find some statistics and data about the students who are poor and they need supporting. She said, please, a lot of teachers are looking for food. They are poorest also. They are poor and they need a lot of supporting. And also I can add also that All Girls now is conducting classes for secondary school to help them, to support them, because the most of the schools are stopping to teach. So we have initiative to teach the secondary school some classes, physics, mathematics, for free to help them, and they are really optimistic, and they need a lot of these initiatives. They need to have hope and to be optimistic, and also I can say that most of the kids and most of the youth, they are engaged with the armed group. So we should take care of the children, of the students, and of this youth, to not let them to go to terrorism, which is they will not find themselves only with the armed group.
Yeah, so what will happen is when people are in Yemen, they have to cope, and what you do, like anyone does, there's 3 million Yemenis who have actually left their homes because of safety and security. And like us, we just go and stay with friends, or we stay with families. If they have no one to go to, then maybe you'll find a derelict building. Or what has happened is that you set up what we call informal camps, basically camping out in open land with no facilities, no sanitation, no facilities for women, no water sources or anything like that, and no livelihoods. So they have no income, they've left their livelihoods behind, they've left their assets behind, they don't even have a goat to start farming. And these are sort of interventions that we need to work with and engage with the people and work out what we can do to aid them, rather than just giving them the cash to go to the market to buy the food. What's the next step? What's the next step? It's been 2 years with the escalation of the conflict, and now we really have to escalate up. So when you go back to Yemen, from here in Geneva, this pledging conference, in 2 days' time, I know it's been a very short and very long trip for you. What message do you think you'll be able to take back to Yemen, to the Yemeni people?
Okay. My message is that we have the voice, we have the power, and we should not rely on anybody to bring any development to our country or to help us to assist ourselves. It should be starting from ourselves. We should stand together and we should work together to overcome this really terrible humanitarian crisis.
So would you like to make any final remarks? Anything you'd like to say? We've got audience out there. People will be logging in now. Maybe people will be logging in later. What would you like to say just to the international public? Don't forget Yemen. We're here. But what else can we do?
Yes, well, first thanks to Oxfam. It was great that we have this opportunity to speak out. We said always we want to shout politely. We want to make the story known by all people. We know that, for example, the Syrian crisis went up, was scaling up, and not like the Yemeni crisis. But still, we are doing our best actually for this pressuring groups or lobbying groups to have all the warring parties to come into one round table and figure this out and make a reconciliation under compromises.
And any final comments from you two lovely ladies?
Solution comes from inside, from people, like she said, Tumna.
Yes.
Yeah, we should have initiative and to be together to solve our problems. And message to the community, to the international community: stop war. Stop war. Yes, we need peace. It's enough. It's enough. Yeah.
Finally, actually, I would have appreciated to take the advantage of having all this gathering today from the politicians to not only pledging for money. Okay, you have part of this conference is to pledge for money, and could be used this conference to have everybody who's involving in what is going on now in Yemen is to sit and try to reconcile the situation among the each other.
So do you think, I know you were invited over by the UN, but do you still feel that you're fully involved in communicating with them, negotiating with them, being able access to high-level meetings, or do you feel like we're here and this is just start of the process?
Actually, for our foundation, Field Medical Foundation, we were lucky because we are HCT member. So we have the access, Adan Hub Coordination Humanitarian Team. So yes, it's supported by OCHA. Since our presence in these meetings, we have access actually to information. It's more than have to access to decision maker to attend the high level meetings. It was what was much more important for us is that we now have access to data. Like for HNO, we didn't know about it before. And regarding our participation here in Geneva, even if we are not going to help to assist the situation in a large way, but at least we came here. Our voice will be heard in an hour.
Good.
So I think everybody will listen.
Good.
They will start listening to local NGOs.
Thank you all of you for coming and sharing your experience with us, and I hope that a meeting like this has an impact and you're able to talk to people and really put across what the situation is like in Yemen. We're going to finish now. If you want to follow us, you can follow us on Twitter, Oxfam on Twitter. You can follow Oxfam on Facebook. And if you want to go to Oxfam Yemen page, that's on Facebook as well. And if you want to make any donation to Oxfam, go to oxfam.org/Yemen. I'm sure you'll find it. Google it. I'm sure you'll log on. It's great. Anyway, thank you for logging in. Here from Geneva, we'll see what the pledges come in. We hope that the 2.1 billion will be raised. We hope that will be mobilised immediately and that it will be able to alleviate some of the suffering of your fellow Yemenis. Thank you.